I guess along the lines of what Drew was asking before, where do you see the divide between students becoming active and academics becoming involved in policy planning commissions or other city organizations or national organizations, and actual elected officials responding to what students want, what academics think are appropriate, and what the general population who may or may not be informed on the subject thinks? Where do you see the sort of the merge of all those actors?
I'll give you a very clear example. One of the things that the City Council has been focused on over the last couple of years is reviving something that had been in effect in New York City prior to Giuliani becoming mayor, and was unfortunately dismantled during his period. And that was a program that seeks to involve more of the communities in New York City in an important sector of the economy, specifically that of government contracting. And so if you look at what's happening today, just in New York City alone, never mind the state or federal government, in New York City alone, we're talking about $20 billion of government contracts, city government contracts. Everything to paying for construction, for new buildings for Hunter or other college campuses, to building schools and hospitals, $20 billion of contracts. And yet almost always these contracts are given to the biggest companies around, which are never led by women or members of minorities. And so we've been trying to resurrect this kind of program, not a quota program, because that's what people have criticized it for, that's why Giuliani got rid of it, but some kind of a recognition that there is a huge disparity between the number of companies that are run by women and by minorities, but for whatever reason, still have no access to the kinds of government contracts there are. So in order to do that, under federal law, it's required that there's a disparity, a detailed disparity study conducted that proves that there's a disparity between the available companies and the actual companies that get the work from the government, in this case, city government. To do that, we certainly didn't rely on members of the city council to come up with this study. We went to CUNY, as we often do. In this case, we went to Medgar Evers College. And so it was that college that actually conducted the study for us that then allowed us to proceed under federal law to have numerical targets for various communities in terms of the kinds of contracts under every single agency in municipal government. The target numbers for contracts to be awarded. So we're now 2 years after the implementation, and we're starting to see the results of more participation by minority and women-owned businesses in city contracting.
I would also, I think another thing your question is getting at is the different roles that universities play and the different actors on universities. So it's also important that universities don't exist like in the sky somewhere, right? They're grounded parts of their communities. And so that universities play an important role in the planning of their communities, in the land use of their communities, in the economic development of their communities. I mean, I went to school at Yale. Yale is the main economic driver in New Haven, and so there's a very complex relationship between the university administrators and the city government, because they're both powerful actors in this very kind of small sphere. And the same way that there's very different roles that students can play. Like, I don't think every student should join the Roosevelt Institution. I think there's room for other kinds of activism also, right? I mean, students are a source for real protest and real energy, and there's been a lot of dialogue recently about the lack of a student response to the Iraq War, a lack of a student response to Sudan. For whatever reason, students in our generation are not quite as willing to take to the streets, are not quite as excited about changing politics as is, and that makes me nervous, right? I mean, there are a lot of problems in the world, and students have to be the ones who respond. They're the ones who have all this time on their hands and can be thinking about these issues. And I think academia plays a really important role in creating that environment where you can think long term, spend your time conceiving of what the world should look like, and then doing something to bring it there.